Meeting for Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. This meeting is being broadcast live by Westford Cable Access TV and recorded for playback online. You are advised that by attending and participating in this meeting, you are consenting to your video and audio being used for this purpose. So the only item on our agenda tonight is a request from Park Run to have a park run event at Stony Brook Conservation Area. Thank you for coming for this discussion. I think it's a lot easier to really get into what we need to get into when we don't have an agenda of other hearings we also have to deal with. So.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you very much for calling a special meeting to order for us. So I've met most of you before. I'm Lydia Turkson, a local resident who wants to volunteer for Park Run and organise this event. I'd like to introduce Dr. Stefan Gopal as well, who's also a Westford resident. Stefan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. As you mentioned, is Dr. Stefan Gopal. I'm a recent appointed member of the Westford Board of Health and have been practicing as a primary care physician locally for over 5 years here. I'm double board certified in family medicine and lifestyle medicine, and hold a PhD in biomedical sciences with experience as a scientist and biology professor. Recently, I opened a local concierge practice, Extended Health Spans, which focuses on evidence-based and preventative medicine. And for the past 10 months, I have also been leading a local chapter of an international nonprofit called Walk with a Doc, which promotes health and wellness through community engagement. I'm very excited that Lydia has brought me on to the team for Park Run, and I'm now acting as a co-event director in supporting the Park Run initiative, as I feel it aligns very well with my passion for encouraging healthy lifestyle and fostering a sense of community. So I want to thank you all for your time and consideration. And since this is my first time speaking before you and working with Park Run, if you give me another minute, why I have invested so much in this, and I think that this is such a great partnership and positive and synergistic, is as I know the Park Run's mission statement is to improve health and happiness by encouraging people to be active, social, and outdoors. And I have looked at the Westford Conservation Trust's mission statement and goals, which are to preserve and protect Westford's natural resources and open spaces, and to educate the public. In particular, what I found of interest in your mission statement is 2 of your goals: to establish and maintain the trails, and to educate the public about wise use of natural resources. And so I think that our mission statement and our goals align very much with some of your goals. And as both an educator and healthcare provider, I feel some of the best ways to get people to understand things like this is to engage them in the use of these types of resources and to model good behavior of the uses of those trails and stuff like that. And so I think I'm going to turn it over to Lydia, and always am open for any questions you have for me or for her. But I think she's done an excellent job in preparing this initiative and responding to some of your questions. But I believe we can help you support the maintenance and use of your trails and engage people in better use and knowledge of our green spaces.
Okay. So I guess in terms of how we want to do the format, Lydia, do you want to walk us through the slide set, or do you want, and in terms of when people have questions, do you want us to hold them till the end, or do you want us to get into it as we're going through the slide set?
We can get into it as we go through the slides if you like. I mean, I really appreciate you setting up a meeting just for this, so as engaging as it needs to be to answer some of the questions you have. And if in the general public people weren't here last time, at least it gives them a kind of recap. I know there's 25 slides, but I'll try and just go through the key 4 or 5.
One thing I would like to kind of correct is this is the Westford Conservation Commission. The Westford Conservation Trust is a private nonprofit, non-government they handle the stewardship of the trails, but it's just their mission statement is theirs, it's not ours.
Okay.
So just a lot of times people aren't aware of that at first, but the commission and the trust are completely separate entities.
Do you guys have a separate mission statement and goals that vary
There's a mission-
significantly from theirs?
There is a mission statement. I'll pull it up because I'm not 100% sure. I haven't.
I think we have 8 goals.
We're here to prevent cumulative adverse impacts
Yeah.
to
Just,
natural resources and the environment.
Yeah.
Jim?
To confuse you maybe a little bit more, there's a third organization I noticed in some of your charts, the Westford Land Preservation Foundation. And they're the holder of the conservation restriction and the ultimate authority on if we have a question about what's allowed on the property in accordance with the conservation restriction, we have to go to them and ask, here's the plan, here's what we'd like to do. We believe it's in accordance with the CR. What do you guys think? And it's really, their decision is higher than ours on whether it can be used or not. Doesn't mean that they grant permission to use the property or not, but they do provide us guidance to ensure that we're following the conservation restriction. So that, again, that's not a governmental agency. It's another private organization. So the Westford Land Preservation Foundation, the Westford Conservation Trust, and then there's us, the Conservation Commission.
And Ellen Hardy is a member of the Westford Land Preservation Foundation, and, she is here representing that organization tonight, so that we're all here. Well, the trust isn't here, but, so anyway.
So there's the
Yeah,
commission's
right.
mission statement. So a little bit, again, touches bits and pieces, but
Thank you.
everybody has a different kind of role in the process.
So then in terms of, having the discussion today, who makes the final decision then? Is it a combination of the
Well, it's
foundation and the commission?
It's under our
public?
care and custody, so in essence, we are the landowner, so we have the ability to say yes and no from that perspective, where a use where a use needs to be looked at from the perspective of the conservation restriction. There is a process within the conservation restriction where we give written notification to the Westford Land Preservation Foundation of what we intend, why we believe it's allowed under the CR, and then they have the ability to come back and say, yes, we agree, or no, respectfully, we disagree for these reasons. And then, it goes to the next step. So it's parties representing different interests.
It's a dialogue between the two groups, basically.
I would say because we have the care and custody, I don't know that is at that point, I would say the initial decision is ours. And then if ours is an affirmative decision, that's where we engage with the land preservation to make sure
We
that,
see no harm.
yeah,
If we see
Yeah.
that, that it's a project that easily can be supported, then we, turn it over.
Okay, Ellen?
What if the CR says it's not
Well,
allowed?
well, obviously it's the COs.
Okay.
In terms of wetlands and everything.
The way that a property like this works under state law is that the town owns it, but there needs to be a separate entity that is a nonprofit which holds the conservation restriction. With all due respect, it is the holder of the conservation restriction who determines whether or not the conservation restriction is being honored. So obviously there's a dialogue, but the final word about whether the CR is being honored rests with the board of directors of the Westford Land Preservation Foundation. But I will say that in the 22 years that we have been in this working relationship of you having care and custody and our board holding the CR, this is really the first time that we have had a discussion where we may differ. All of the others have been sort of formalities, and we've said that sign looks great. So this is a bigger ask, and so our involvement, I think, will be greater than it has been simply because it's the first time
And I think, so to paraphrase you, both parties have to agree on something going forward.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, would it be helpful for them to see the CR?
It's available online.
I think we've,
You've shared a copy with me.
Yes.
It's a 30-page document and I'm a chemist. So I've had a look preliminarily at some of the uses, but I can't express myself as an expert in law, so.
well, if you want to start with your presentation, then if, as questions come up now, as questions come up later, we can talk through them.
And we've seen all this before.
You've seen all this before, that's what I mean. I think we should just go,
Quickly through it.
there's 3 or 4 slides, that's all. If we go, Matt, to slide 3, the first one, the map.
That scrolls really fast.
Yeah. So just again, to make everybody familiar, Parkrun is a British charity set up 20 years ago. It's, I guess the equivalent would be, it's like a meetup where people meet up once a week. The whole focus is to lower barrier to exercise. It's all about promoting physical, mental and social health. So it's not a race as such, it's a run and a walk, and it's a community event which community volunteers will organise and will maintain. It's usually on a public space, park meaning, public park, but it has also been on other, non-public land. So if we go to the map, number 3. So this is the area that we were proposing. Initially, we were suggesting this because of the Westford Academy cross-country course. So the goal is to use an existing infrastructure, not to make extreme changes, to preserve the area in the countryside and maintain that. The proposal would be to meet once a week, Saturday morning, between 9 and 10:30. We would request use of the land. Volunteers would help organise. There wouldn't be any big, any big infrastructure that we would build or provide. We would meet up, run once around the track in Stony Brook, and then enter into the woods on existing trails. I think it's called the Wakey Trail down there on the left. I should have brought a pointer.
No,
It's okay. I'll stand up. I'll show you.
I do.
But so what we're talking about here is heading one trip around the track, and then we just head
Lydia.
the existing Wakey Trail.
Laser pointer.
Thank
Laser
you.
pointer.
Let's go tech.
This is a lecturer in me now. So one time around the track using existing infrastructure, then we just go down this the trail, the mid road, and enter into the woods on the Wakey Trail along here, and then turn at the parking area. Now, one of the things, Margaret, I know you mentioned last time, was this issue around parked cars here. So the only infrastructure change I would propose is cutting a gap in the telephone pole here so that people will just run across the existing field and then turn again up through East Boston Camp here on the existing trail and finish on the track. There would be volunteer stewards at this key area to make sure people didn't run the risk of running into the cars as they were parking. And then there was a question this morning about potholes. So I have spoken to, I think it's called Ideal Block, and they've said they would donate broken stone subject to the Commission's approval of appropriate stone so that it wouldn't disturb nature and the environment. And we would help to prepare the path and fill potholes as required. I appreciate it's winter now, so everything is under ice and snow. So these pictures were taken before, but the areas that I had identified were here at the turn. There is a gap and a drop where the tarmac has come away. And then just on the Wakey Trail here, there is a ledge just as you go downhill before you move into the parking area. So Ideal Block said they would provide that for free. If we had any indication that this was going to be a positive proposal, it would take Parkrun 8 to 10 weeks to go through the risk assessment and the process. They would then provide liability insurance up to a value of £12 million. So in that time, we would walk the trails, and I appreciate it's been winter, there may be other potholes on the trail that may need filling in, but I just wanted to provide the answer, at least a provisional one, to this question that came in this afternoon. And that's something outside of Parkrun. As a local resident, I would volunteer and do that. I've also sequestered my son, James, who will also do that. And I'm sure we may be able to get other volunteers as needed. And one of the benefits would be also for the cross-country team. So repairing the trail, even though it's outside a park run, we want to help prepare the trail for the cross-country season too, because the kids are going to be on this trail. I understand over the last 10 years, there's been 3 big meets. They have had up to, I've spoken with a coach at Westford Academy, up to 100 children have run, or students have run this course on events, and then they use it routinely for training, etc. So that was the thinking around using existing infrastructure. Other things, using current infrastructure. Here, just in front of the track, there are porta toilets in the summer months, or as soon as it starts to get warmer. And I walk that trail and have run it in the past, so I appreciate how icy and full of snow it can get over winter. So something to consider after some of the earlier discussions we've had may be to use the trail in the months that it's usable and close down Parkrun over the winter when it's too icy or too snowy. We do have an alert. So what would happen is, if the proposal was approved, we would set up a Stony Brook Parkrun website. People would register once for Parkrun, and it's like a barcode passport that they would have, and they could attend any Parkrun in the world then. But the ones that could come to Stony Brook, we would measure the numbers every week. And I understand the sensitivities that were discussed last time around, well, how many people are going to be running this? We would monitor the numbers, and the numbers get uploaded to the website every week, so we get some feedback, and we could agree to come back to the Commission if use was provided with exact numbers of how many people have attended each week.
Is that predicated on everybody who participates registers, as opposed to somebody who sees it on social media and just decides to show up?
If you want to be part of the statistics, you have to have registered to have a barcode. There could be people who see it on social media and just turn up, but if they want the statistics, the whole goal of Parkrun is to encourage exercise and participate by participation. So if you attend a certain number of parkruns, you get a t-shirt basically. If you volunteer a certain number of times as a local community person, you get it's a point towards a t-shirt, if you like. And it becomes one of these collection things that people just want to get involved in and participate. So in theory, yes, somebody could look online and see, oh, there's a park run, I'm going to go.
Or bring a friend.
Or with a friend. But the idea is always, even when they arrive, we say, hey, are you registered? Do you want to register? So that we can record and then feed back on numbers, basically.
So can you do same-day registration?
You can do same-day registration. You can just go
So if someone
online.
just showed up.
So you could do same-day registration on your phone. You could go online on the Stony Brook.
One question that I'd had in reviewing the slide set for today is with the routes, the trolley trail and the Stony Brook Trail. Do you have those two spelled out for a specific reason in terms of listing the two trails?
Yeah, so the reason we did that, because I think it came up as an earlier point, East Boston Camps. When East Boston Camps is rented, then it came up in an earlier point that maybe, we should reroute. So that's why we had this extension to the trolley trail. We could reroute, we'd start at the track, we'd run a little bit up the trolley trail, back up here, and then back down here, so not to disturb East Boston Camp.
Okay,
And that's all managed by Department of Parks and Recs, Michelle Collette. And I forget the name of the lady in her group, but they'll inform me of the schedule for East Boston camps around March. They start to know. So we would know then if we needed to do an alternate route that Saturday, because we don't want to disturb the camp that, you know, people are enjoying. So Matt, do you want to kind of flip through? Let's see, are there any other questions? Are there any questions? Yes.
sure. If, Nancy, if you,
Please.
Nancy Rosinski. I'm too short for this. You can leave it there. So, can you just provide more information on filling the potholes? You know, I know you pointed out like what we call the old road, right, up at on the bottom half.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned, well, when the snow goes, you might find other areas. So I guess I'd be interested in what your definition of a pothole is. And do you see maybe doing some of those improvements on all of the trails, or are you just focused on what used to be the roads and currently are the roads?
Yeah, so we would focus on the course. This would be outside of Park Run. This would be me as
Right.
volunteering as a resident. But we would focus on the course to try and mitigate the risk of trip. I mean, we would advertise it as a trail and a trail course, but we would be focused on the actual running route in terms of repair. So I don't actually know where other potholes might be, because I think we'd have to assess, you know, when the snow and the ice melts.
Okay, so I'd be interested in especially on the trail portion, not the road as much as,
Yeah.
what do you see, and I know you haven't looked that close now, but just in general, that might need to be fixed? Like, I run in here all the time as well, right? So I'm jumping over roots and, you know, that's just the nature of trail running, right?
Yeah.
So are you trying to get rid of all, like, I don't envision what you're trying to fill on the other trails, so maybe you can help me out on that one.
well,
No, we wouldn't. The whole goal is to kind of minimise to use the existing infrastructure and not to change the nature of the fact that it is a trail. So I wouldn't be doing anything to the routes. I wouldn't be, you know, we would just look at these two areas where I think what I saw were clear tarmacked areas that went into earth, but I wouldn't want to make any big structural changes at all. This is me volunteering as a Westford resident. It's not within Park Run's remit to create a course at all. The idea is minimum disruption and use the existing infrastructure.
and Nancy, before we met with Lydia, I had done a walk of the trail back in October. And what I had noticed is going from Camp Waukee down, headed towards the parking area, part of that slope coming down looks like it was originally a paved road, and there are places where there's pavement left, and there's places where it's eroded away. And so that becomes potentially a trip hazard, especially if it's covered with leaves or whatever. So
Yeah, and that
that's,
part I understand. I guess
Okay.
I'm still struggling. I'm sorry to beat this up, but this one is important to me. So let's go back on more of the rustic trail. So give me an example of something that you would see in that trail that says, oh, we should go fill that up with some of that stone you're getting.
So it would have to be a clear hole and a break in infrastructure. That's what I would see as a pothole. If it was uneven ground based on route, I wouldn't determine that as anything to change. That's nature. And I think coming back into the context of Park Run, we'd be very clear on the website that this is a trail and it may have uneven surfaces. And we've done a risk assessment, which I think we added in the pack too, which says there may be routes with risk of trip, there may be uneven surfaces in places, and it's nature at the end of the day. So we've tried to incorporate that and make it inclusive. So we would on the website, we determine that as is.
So I'll just can I offer a comment since I'm standing here anyway, just on our subject? So I understand maybe trying to do some of the potholes where it used to be the roads, like to your example. I don't have an issue with that personally. Not my opinion really matters, but I would take big issue with doing any filling along the trails. It's a woodsy trail. That's why we bought it. That was the intent of that property, not to go and say, well, there's a little hole from Mr. Gopher here. Let's go fill it with stone and let's get that one. That's not why we got that property, and so I would be very opposed to anything on the trails.
Okay.
What is
Eric?
In that regard, there's talk of a risk assessment, you know, it's gonna take a period of weeks to do. They're gonna define, you know, the characteristics of the trail, the condition of the trail. But once that risk assessment is conducted, are we required to maintain that trail at the level that it was when the risk assessment was done? Because if it degrades further than that, and if somebody gets injured and there's a claim made and the trail isn't maintained to the standard that the risk assessment said it was at the time it was done, you know, even though you have insurance, you say, you know, I gotta think that a countersuit would be made against the town for not maintaining the trails to the standard that was identified during the risk assessment. So I'm concerned about that, and then constantly having to maintain the trail. And as Nancy was talking about, you know, I thought the idea here was, you know, not to maintain and improve trails, but to try to leave things the way they are to the extent that we can.
So, for example, if there was erosion that further exposed tree roots or further exposed rocks, that basically.
And if somebody got hurt, and if that was a degradation from what the original risk assessment identified, you know, is that putting the town or, you know, increasing the liability or putting liability on the commission, or, you know, I'm not quite sure how that is handled. You know, when you talked about the insurance, who's that insurance through? You know, when you do the risk assessment.
Right. So
You mentioned like 12 million pounds or something.
Yes,
So I'm
yes, 12 million
assuming
pounds.
it was a European type of insurer that was, you know, risking.
So Park Run is Park Run in the US. There are 75 different park runs in the US. I think we provided you a copy of the risk assessment, and that's what Park Run will use.
But I'm
they'll
interested
also
in who
use a
issues
video.
the policy. I mean, there's a policy, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
can find that out.
is that US, is that European?
It will be US related.
You know, who's, under whose authority, you know, what's the is it US regulations? Is it, you know, European Central you know, I'm not sure who it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if a claim is made or what have you, you know, how that's done, where that goes, how that ends up.
So we did provide a link to the details of liability. So I'm pretty sure, I can double check exactly who the insurer is, but I agree with you, Eric, I would imagine it is US because they have 75 US related events.
Well, I don't know if it is, you know, when you say it's, you know.
I can check it.
Yeah,
there
I would
was-
just,
Yeah, because the link you sent, I downloaded it, or I saved it. It is a Kent ME. I think of that as Kent, Maine, but is there also a Kent ME in the UK?
So that's Kent, Maine.
Okay,
That's Kent.
so
Maine.
the company is Marsh, and so I guess they've got a US affiliate.
company,
Yeah.
Marsh is the broker. They're not the-
Marsh
they're-
Limited. West Mailing Maidstone. I think that's, so, but anyway,
Yeah, no, something that,
so we want to get to the bottom of, is this, a US-based insurance liability policy or not? Jim,
It's already passed.
okay,
but, you know, I'm just, again, and are we required to, once there is a risk assessment done on the trails, you know, is it the responsibility of the commissioner or the town to maintain them? And if they're not maintained at that standard that the risk assessment identifies, you know, is that gonna be problematic? I think that it's gonna be.
okay, so your concern is if the trail conditions are not what they were at the time of the risk assessment, what's the impact of that on the liability?
So one suggestion I have there, and just to be clear, again, before Park Run issues that form of liability, I have to do a video, we do a video of the course as it is. and that determines the state as is. The other thing to comment on as well is when, if the proposal were approved at some point, if you agreed the proposal, a letter of permission is provided to Park Run as to the use of the land. Now, you as a commission could add detail, a specific provision as to how the land was used. You might add a provision saying the land has to be used as is. So you could put that in there as a consideration to obviate this concern around continually wanting
Or just what,
maintenance obligation.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, but some wording in that
but
context.
yeah, it's something to think about that says if over time the condition of the trail changes materially, what is the impact on, what is the impact period? Do we potentially, yes, it opens up a new line of questions.
And certainly just kind of as I pulled it up, included in the risk assessment, one of their kind of items was uneven ground on the course. And the mitigation proposed was use cones for major holes and obstacles. So again, for the portions that, are on the trails, again, I think that's kind of, you've settled on kind of where the concerns are. The cones, identifying them, that I think that is a certainly much less intrusive and active, impact on, said, the trail, as opposed to, cutting roots or things to that extent.
Did we have another question from the audience?
Question from the public.
Yeah. Yep, come on up.
So I'd like to.
Tell us who you
my
are.
name
You
is-
gotta identify yourself.
My name is June McMorrow and I live on Kings Pine Road. I'm a 35-year resident and a very frequent user of the property. You all know that. I'd like to say a couple things, but firstly, may I ask this gentleman a question? Yes.
Absolutely.
So you said this something about the dock walk.
Yeah, I run the walk.
So where do you do that?
So I use the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail
Oh.
and it is
I know what that is. It's paved
not iced over.
and it's cleared and there's not trees and roots and, okay, so that's good to know. So, could you, Matthew, would you please put the map back on up there
Certainly.
of the trail? So,
Do you need the laser pointer?
Lydia's got it.
no, I don't think I need to. I think you, everybody knows the property fairly well. So, and I have seen you up there, but I don't know when was the last time you were there.
Saturday.
Saturday, okay. So I'm retired now, and so I walk up there just about every day. It was my rule for a couple of years not to go up there in the winter because it was just really too dangerous. But I walk my neighbor's dog. He's quite elderly, and the dog is 2 years old and quite a big dog, and she needs to be exercised. So I'm up there walking in the winter. And believe it or not, there is a group of dog walkers that we're all very careful, and we're all up there just about every day. So there are people that are up there. So I just wanted to make some comments about the trails. And the trail along the Stony Brook, I try to stay away from.
So which one's that? Is that along?
Along the brook. The Stony Brook is on the left-hand side of the,
this one.
and Kai's Brook is on the right-hand side of the
Okay.
the map. So the trail which goes along the Stony Brook is very rooty, and in
This
season,
one here.
the Stony Brook can flood up onto the trail. It also tends to be more overgrown and less traveled, and so I tend to stay away from it for those reasons, like, should I fall, I want somebody to find me. So I come in from Depot Street, and the road, right now, today, the road coming in from Depot Street, paralleling the train tracks, and going up into the camp where the parking lots are, that road is starting to melt, but it's very, very potholed. and I go about 2 miles an hour. I like to park out closer to Depot so I can get a longer walk, but it's been so dangerous and so icy that I've been driving in to the gate and walking up on snowpack, because even once you get past the gate, it's a sheet of ice. The whole camp is a sheet of ice. So why am I going up there? Well, I want the exercise and I enjoy the dog.
I got it.
Yeah, I would say this year, probably about the second week in December, we had a little bit of light snow, but then we had some rain and it got very cold. It's been a very cold winter. And there's been ice up there now for about 12 weeks. There's still a lot of ice up there. I've been wearing spikes on my feet since about the second week in December, and despite that fact, I fell twice, on the Saturday of Super Bowl Sunday and on Super Bowl Sunday. And on Sunday, I went forward and strained my hand and really had limited mobility for about 10 days. So that's what I wanted to say about the Stony Brook Trail. Going up through the main camp, it's a sheet of ice right now. In the fall, the road is full of potholes, and I believe that you alluded to the leaves, which can hide the potholes, and that's a big problem. That whole road going in there is potholed, and there's 2 hills. Actually, there's only 1 hill, because one of the hills has some pavement on it. It's the hill that's closest to the boathouse, washes out when we have a good rainstorm. So there's that, and then there's also potholes. And so I guess what I'm just saying is, you know, in the fall, you've got to be careful of potholes and leaves which hide them. There's roots and flooding on the side of the Stony Brook, and right now there's an awful lot of ice. And having said all of those things, you know, it doesn't even have to be an extreme of weather. In August of 2009, I rolled my ankle walking from one side of Burgess Pond. There's a trail over to the other side of Burgess Pond. I rolled my ankle and I broke it in 3 places. And I had to be littered out by the fire department and the police department. And I still have a plate and screws there. So, you know, it doesn't have to be snow and ice. So, you know, there's all those things. The other thing I wanted to just mention is I've been following this. I have read all the packets that Matthew puts together, and I noticed there were letters in one of the previous meetings from Ray Dick, the health director, and Jennifer Claro, who I think is the director of the senior center, and they talked about how lonely and isolating the weekends can be for seniors when the senior center's closed. And they thought this would be a great activity for seniors to engage in and exercise and get outdoors. And I'm saying that I don't know that that's a great idea. I think the seniors would probably be safer walking at the mall. Or you could maybe go to Market Basket and just walk around the inside on the furthest aisles. But, I don't think this is a great spot for seniors who may be lonely on the weekend. So, and let me just say another thing. I think that when you had spoken at previous meetings, you had addressed the fact that there were 3 of these events hosted in Massachusetts. One was Jamaica Pond, which I grew up in Boston. That's all paved.
Okay.
It's all paved. It's around the Jamaica Pond. It's not overgrown. It's paved and heavily traversed. The second one is Danahy Park, which is in Cambridge. And I've been there. There's a paved road that goes through there. I think there's a couple of soccer fields. And so I guess my point about that is it's paved and it's not in the woods. Cutler Park and Needham, is the third one, and I've never been to it. But I don't know, have you ever been there?
Yes,
And what's that one like?
So it's the one that's as close or as similar to this. It's a DPW, so it is considered it's considered a park, a public space. It's not a conservation space, but it does have uneven surfaces like this. It's flatter because it's around the lake, but it's a cross between broken up gravel and uneven surface around the lake. And they run 2 laps around the lake. This is proposed as one.
And it's gravel, it's gravel?
It's gravel plus some uneven routing areas too. And they're all around the lake. It has similarities in terms of the width of the area. I've looked and followed the stats. There's about 20 to 25 people. It varies. They sometimes get up to 30 or so in the summer. But just to come to your other point, I mean, you've obviously, you've had some quite challenging times at Stony Brook. Why do you keep going?
Because I want the exercise and I enjoy the dog.
Right.
And I enjoy the people that I meet up there.
Absolutely.
I see the same people all the time and some of them are from town and some of them are not from town. But we all love our dogs and she's not even my dog, but she's a very nice dog.
Yeah.
I really enjoy her. I've always had dogs. So I go up there because I enjoy it and it clears my head. And in the nice weather, I'll spend more time there because sometimes it's peaceful up there and sometimes it's not so peaceful up there. But by and large, it's quite lovely.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, can I ask you a question about the gravel? Somebody has promised you gravel, and I just wonder, do they realize how much gravel is going to be needed? Because I think it's going to be a lot.
Well, and I think, I think the conversation of what we do to deal with potholes, we appreciate Lydia researching donations of materials, but I think, that discussion about how we deal with the potholes is a larger thing. That's where we also have to be working. So some of it is, I'd kind of like to keep the discussion focused on the proposal in front of us because I think that whole thing gets into a larger maintenance issue with the property that's beyond just Park Run.
Well, I think that speaks to Eric's comments.
Yeah.
And I think those are very good comments. And I think annually, the town grades will go in and grade the road. I'm not exactly sure how they do it.
Well,
Matt, well, I'm not talking about paving it, but don't they usually go in there once a year and try to straighten it out a little bit with all the holes that are there?
Yes, and there's the DPW director
How do
has
they do-
expressed concern about the effectiveness of that as he's questioned kind of its construction, or how it was applied. So they do occasionally, as it fits in with their schedule and certainly all the other myriad of requests with which they have and kind of commitments throughout town. So, I mean, that's related to, certainly the portion of, kind of the proposed course from the parking area up through Camp Neshoba. And, I know your point, you raised the point about the entry road and certainly the potholes there. But the proposal for Park Run is to use the existing Stony Brook School parking area. Because there's certainly sufficient parking there as opposed to the parking area off of Depot Street. And B, it doesn't increase traffic into on that entry road, which I certainly appreciate as that's if approved and occurring weekly and call it 15 cars, that's additional traffic that certainly isn't impacting kind of the construction, its construction. So I certainly understand your concern about the potholes on the entry road off of Depot Street, but I don't see its.
Well, I'm not complaining about the potholes. I'm just saying that they're there. Like I said, I try to park as close to the street as I can so I don't wreck my car, and I need the walk. I'm not complaining about the potholes. I'm just saying that, you know, they're there, and really they go all the way up to the boys' camp. And the town will try to do some work to, you know, even it out or make it a little nicer, but with foot traffic, bicycle traffic, baby carriages, cars, and the elements. Like if we get a good rainstorm, the road by the boathouse gets washed out. You can see where the rain was heaviest. So that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Noel?
This may have been answered before, but you said the 80 runners or walkers cap. Does the website cut off once you have 80?
So the website won't cut off when you have 80. We would state a cap of 80 on the website. So when you get your barcode, if you go a couple of slides in, Matt, I can explain the registration. That's it. There you go. So that's a website for the US. So you would put your name, your details in, and you receive the barcode. And then you could, in theory, with this barcode, go anywhere in the world.
Right.
But in practice, based on having spoken, I did Cutler Park, and I've spoken to the event person there, and also you mentioned Delaney. And they say mostly it's local people that come to the park run. So on the website, we'd say up to 80, or we could put a cap 80. You could also, the commission could also consider those kind of provisions as a condition of use of the land. And we could come back to you on a quarterly basis if you wanted to monitor those numbers. So it wouldn't cap out, as it were, at 80. You just have a barcode and you appear, you come on the day, and we will track and we will report statistics. So if it happened on a Saturday, we'd upload the numbers on a Sunday. You can also upload times, but since we've been speaking, Parkrun actually has stopped recording times now, individual times.
But you won't turn people away if it's more than 80.
We wouldn't, but we would monitor it carefully, I think. If we were coming to 80 or coming to that, we could put some sort of trigger in play that we come back to you and say, hey, we've started to see 80, 85, you know. But based on the other people's event experience, it's rare that they get to the top, to the cap.
And I think you spoke to earlier when you had asked about the 80 number as well, that when you've talked to other park runs, that it falls much more around like 20 people or so, is that correct? And
In a rural area,
with my experience too, so my walk with the dock is barely 3 to 6 people. I am very excited about this, and I think it would be more along the lines of the 20 or less that you're talking about, because I've also worked with the new Marathon Sports that does a weekly run, and knowing their turnout as well is in the 15 to 20 range kind of thing. So I myself was surprised when it was this 80 cap kind of thing, because I felt and then after talking, that realistically you're going to be seeing much lower numbers in this kind of thing of local usage. And I also felt with both of you using it that you almost, to me, sound like good reasons for supporting Park Run, in that you still value using this and going out there, even with some of the negatives that it may have. And I know this trail as well, personally being here. I know that one rooted washout area that sometimes floods a little bit by the lake kind of thing. And that's why I brought to Park Run now. When you initially brought this to me, you felt like this would be something that would be year round, and maybe occasional inclement weather would change it. And I very quickly brought to her attention that these types of things, and Walk with the Docks, another Walk with the Docks in the New England area, we tend to sort of shut them down once you get that snow and ice on that ground, just to limit that extra sort of liability. And so
that's absolutely something that we could consider for this event. We could consider taking it through to inclement weather. We still have with the warning on a weekly basis, we would look at that. We would review and walk the trail. One of the volunteers would walk the trail to see if there's any fallen trees or branches. So assess a risk of obstacles before the event anyway. But yes, we could close it down over winter.
So I was just gonna add on to what I had already said, about the changing seasons up there. So I guess, what's this, March 5th? And, and I'm surprised to hear that you were able to run up there on Saturday.
I didn't run, I walked.
Oh, I thought you said you ran. Yeah, but, I don't know when it's gonna turn to mud season, but mud season will be next. And, we could have snow and ice up there for another couple of weeks. It's been my experience that when we have a winter like this, it takes quite some time to be able to see the ground because the tree canopy is so heavy up there. And I can't remember when it was. Maybe it was the winter of 2015. I don't remember. But I do remember years that we had snow up there and into April. And I understand that last winter and the winter before, we didn't have much snow, and this has been a real old-fashioned New England winter, but we can get these. And so I don't really know that mud season up there isn't really very nice either. So, right, Nancy?
Do you still continue to go in those seasons? I'm
Yes,
curious.
I do.
Yeah.
I've been going back up there for like 2 years now.
Absolutely.
She's trying to recruit you.
That's the draw. Oh, it's such a wonderful place, isn't it?
There's a lot of really nice people that go up there, and I know them all, and I know their dogs, and
And a
it's
sense of community.
there is a sense of community.
Absolutely. And again, I just want to emphasize, this is not a run. This is not a one-time event. This is if you want to run and do a PR, this is not necessarily the event for that. This is a community event where, we're trying to lower the barriers to exercise. So if people want to go run, great. If people don't want to run and want to walk, great. If they want to walk with one leash dog, fantastic. We want a cross-generational event which fits overall well-being and social. Some of the reasons you still go there is natural beauty, it's community, it's getting to know people, it's volunteering, enjoying the space. And our hope is that then people also help maintain the space outside of Park Run, in keeping with the natural profile. We don't want to turn it into a racetrack.
Are there other, we've been having
Sorry,
a great
yeah.
conversation on this slide.
Yeah.
Are there other slides that you think would be important to show us?
I don't know, Matt, do you want to just go through and then? So I think a lot of this you've seen before. We've talked about registration,
All
we've
the
talked about
pictures show
volunteers.
nice wide
Keep
paved
going.
walkways, huge expanses of manicured grass fields. That's not what we got, nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. You put a dozen walkers out walking their dog or just going for a stroll like June was saying, and then you put 40 or 80 runners on those same trails. That's not gonna work.
So the 40 or 80, remember, they're not runners. They're running and walking, and they're people of differing ability. So when I started at
Nobody sets
Cutler,
PRs by walking,
yeah, but it's not a performance. It's not.
but you're timing everybody, right? That automatically.
They stop.
That automatically
You
puts that
receive.
in.
So when you turn up, you go with your barcode, you complete the course, and then you receive a token. And that token links your time to the barcode. So all you're competing with is yourself. Now, Park Run don't anymore register times by age and by group or by gender. So effectively, I think within the website, you could actually see your time to see if you improve. But the goal is to be in community, enjoying the space. So in reality, when I went to Cutler, there were some people walking. There were some younger people who who ran off. And there was a streaming of individuals. So it wasn't, breast to breast, 40 people. They actually thinned out. The group thinned out. Some people were walking with younger children and with dogs. So I just want to emphasize it's not a race. And if PRs are important to you, you're the only one that's going to see that. That makes sense?
Yep.
You're the only one that's going to see that. This is
Clock
not
going, runners run faster.
this is not a Boston qualifying event.
I really got some concerns about the times of the year when this could operate and work.
Yeah,
I
hear you.
think just for safety reasons, nobody should be up there running December, January, February, and March.
Yeah, I get that.
Right there, you got
Totally
a third of the year that's gone.
Yeah.
The schools do training and then competitions in the fall. And that could start as early as late August, and then it goes through September, October, and if they're in finals or if there's a regional competition, that's November.
Yeah.
So there's 2/3 of the year. And now what's left is April, May, June, and July. And we could perhaps have park run in there for April, May, June, and July. But if we start getting another organization comes in, the XYZ group wants to run on Wednesdays and another group wants to run on Sundays, then what do? We've got the schools having 1/3 of the year, kind of almost exclusive access for our big running event. You guys would have 1/3 of the year for that. Nobody's gonna be in there having a competition or a run or a race or a fast walk during the winter. What do we do when the next group comes in and the next group after that? I think we have to start either eliminating usage or reducing the time frame.
So just to pick up your comment about, so I hear all of that. I totally agree with you about the winter time period and agree with some of the members of the public who said, wow, it's sheets of ice up there.
It is.
Even though it's so beautiful, you still go, don't you? It's
I'm wearing
just wonderful.
I'm wearing spikes, I'm taking
Exactly.
baby steps, and I'm walking on the snowpack.
And you're walking, yeah.
And I'm really not doing the walk I would like to do.
Right.
I do 1 mile and I turn around and leave. It's just really to get the dog to run, because she's just 2 years old. She needs
very
to
cute.
run.
So I take the point about winter, so that might be something to consider to close down an event like this around winter. In terms of the cross-country, I spoke with a cross-country coach. They do their training Monday to Friday. They don't do it Saturday morning.
Right.
And I think the events where I said there are 100 people, up to 100 students, that also is a Monday to Friday period. So that slot is still available on the Saturday between 8:30 effectively and 10. So that slot is available. I mean, I can't control the demand of other people who want to come and use that space. We're not asking for exclusive use. We're asking to share the space with others.
Right.
So every event,
40 runners on that
every event
trail.
will start with a briefing. And the briefing is about trail etiquette. The briefing is about the risks of the trail, to say that it isn't a trail. There may be leaves, there may be potholes. And a briefing about making sure we don't all run abreast to share the trail, making sure that dogs are on short leash. So all of those things in that briefing are around being able to share the trail and good trail etiquette, staying on the trail so we don't disturb any wildlife, for example. So that will happen, and as race directors, we'll do that at the beginning of each one. I can't control if other people want to enjoy the space, because I think that's what's so great about the commission, isn't it? About preserving nature and the use of nature and encouraging others, despite the inclement weather, to want to still get out there and enjoy it.
That's great. I'd just rather have it dispersed instead of all concentrated on Saturday mornings or Tuesday afternoons or Thursday or whatever. All right, I've said enough.
What do you think about the every weekend, 9 to 10:30? To me, it's like too intensive, if anything, half
It would be if
that,
it- I
once a
think
month,
If it would be the same time frame as the schools use it for cross-country training and competitions, then you'd have Saturday in the morning for this race, and then the training periods would be in the afternoon, the school days. I think that's too much.
So can I ask the Commission also, I mean, you've been using the route, the cross-country team's been using the route over 10 years.
Yeah, just that.
So what kind of things have you learnt from that? And did you go through this
We haven't had complaints.
process?
We haven't had
Did
complaints
they,
about it.
when they started this, I wasn't on the commission. Did they actually formally come to the commission and ask to use the trail?
Yeah, to put up the signage and stuff and to use it.
Okay,
I don't think there was a limit on the numbers of runners that were gonna be using.
but there was
They come before.
well, that was kind of,
I don't remember.
Yeah, somebody did.
so there was a discussion
Probably-
and a
probably
request to
Westford
use
Coast
the,
or something. I don't remember
Okay.
who it was that came.
And they use the same trail that
It's the
you're
same
going
trail.
to. That's what sort of surprises me, being new to this, is the local usage and the cross-country usage, but it feels like that it is the park run bringing locals out to use it. The trail isn't safe for them or appropriate for them or something that they should be using. It just sort of,
I agree with June's review there. We got a note from Jennifer Claro from the Senior Center, Director of Elder Services. There's no way, absolutely no way the folks that I see over at the Cameron Center where I participate in activities are gonna be able to pass on those trails in the wintertime, never. In the fall, probably not with leaves covering the ground. And they have a hard enough time getting in and out of the Cameron Senior Center. They really do.
I don't know.
So-
I think
and
age
that
is a
was-
wonderful thing.
I mean, that was, when I read the letter from Ray Deck, that Director of the Health Department, and then also from the Council on Aging, it was very much, let this be something, something that all residents are eligible to partake in.
Absolutely.
And when And part of it is, there's a cohort here who is very active and so builds up the conditioning that they are able to do parts of that course. But when I look at it and I think, somebody who's not been walking and would like to get into it, the high school's cross-country meet route is not the place that somebody, I don't see that as conducive to a first place where somebody's gonna go out and start walking because it's 2.5 miles, there are some serious hills. There's a portion of the population that I think would benefit from the exercise and where Park Run is trying to get people to go. And I think a lot of people will not be able to complete the course. They may find it very discouraging because in fact it is so challenging. And I will come out and say this, it occurred to me that at the Robinson Westford Academy schools, there is a trail system between them where there are trails where you could make a loop where somebody who's just getting started out, they've got a shorter one. There are trails which are maybe, a gentler slope. If you head up to the back way around past the Crucifoli, there are hills for somebody who wants a more challenging route. But this I think of as a top tier trail. And that's maybe not the place that you would want to encourage people just getting started who don't have the conditioning to be able to do it, I don't know that you're setting them up for success. And I really would like to see that, where this happens is in a route where people can be successful, they keep up with it.
So we had a look at that route. I haven't looked at it in depth. We walked it actually, and we've been around that route. It doesn't have, there are some things that are good about it. I agree with you, but there is also some undulation of going up and down. The route isn't as wide in certain places as Stony Brook is. And then there is also crossing over, there may be a route we'd be able to take, but they're not always as wide. There's a little stream across.
Bridges.
There are some bridges that would restrict some people's access. But just speaking to your point about you think that Stony Brook is a top tier and it might discourage people.
Well, for the town of Westford.
Well, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I agree with you. It's a top tier.
But-
That's why it attracts people to run in such inclement weather. But the idea is, again, to encourage people within community So if it takes you 2 or 3 or 4 attempts to complete as a first timer, that's fine. Remember there are back runners right at the end, and so nobody will ever arrive last. The back runner's role, if somebody is struggling to get along the trail, if they need to stop and take rest, the back runner will stop and take rest with them.
If for part of me, it's thinking about people who have mobility issues. Stuff like that. I do 3.5K, maybe 4 times a week, and when I did that route, those hills were challenging.
Up at Stony Brook?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no,
There.
I do Butternut, Cherry, and then through Lakeside.
Okay.
So I have subdivisions where
Yeah.
I have a paved surface. If I fall, somebody sees me, and I still have community. But it's, and it's really, in terms of especially the population that would like to get started, doesn't have the background, doesn't have the fitness. I have concerns that this is maybe going to be discouraging. It may be challenging for them if they have mobility issues, if they have balance issues, especially some of the older adults like myself. I want it to be someplace where more of the people who participate can be successful. I think there are, you've seen it in the emails that you got. There are a lot of people who are runners and they're just chomping at the bit. And it's just like, there are other people out here who would benefit for activity. And I just have reservations about this being the best place to send them.
Can I just, you fact checked me appropriately
Yeah.
that I was missing the multiple different organizations that are involved in this. I wanted to make sure that I was looking at the same maps and stuff, and you confirmed with me. Because I've walked both of these, I've hiked both of these. The Westford Trails actually classifies this trail as an easy trail. It classifies it as the same as the Rabafui Trail.
The Stony Brook?
The Stony Brook is classified as an easy level trail.
Where's the Rabafui Trail?
The Rabafui is what we call the Robinson Christofoli. That's what the kids call it.
Oh, okay.
When I looked at it on the town's website, I thought it was
Same thing,
difficult.
that link that I sent had it,
Okay.
where we found that Robinson, not the Rabafui then, the Robinson Christofoli WA, that's why the kids call it Rabafui, where we found that, yes, that is, because I thought you guys oversaw that as well as conservation land, but on the website it said that that was educational owned and it rated it as an easy, and that same thing for the Stony Brook one ranks it as an easy one. And I know that trail, and I know there's hard parts and
Yeah.
easier parts,
That's
and
part
that's
of the-
why
that's part of the
with
challenge.
Park Run, it's
That's
about
part of the
walk your
challenge to
pace
support
kind of thing.
individuals. That's part of the challenge to support individuals who thought they couldn't do it. But when they had a go, even if they had a go once or twice in community, they did it. I think you're doing yourself a disservice, Margaret, and this concept of age and what you can and can't do.
So to your point, your recent point, I know probably maybe three weekends ago, we were over at Stony Brook, and my husband was driving the pickup truck, which he had in four high, and we were still sliding all over the place. And he said, "We have to get out of here." So we did, and we drove over to WA. It was actually during school vacation week, because I said, "It's school vacation week. I hope that the parking lot is plowed. Maybe we'll get lucky and the track will be plowed or shoveled." Well, that wasn't the case. But we did walk around the parking lot and go into the woods a little bit, but it was really just too hard. We really couldn't go, we're breaking trail, it just wasn't a good idea.
It wasn't cleared.
No, we were breaking trail and I'm not in great shape, and I'm a senior citizen too, so.
You're referring to the Robinson WA Trail
Yes.
being more difficult for you than the Stony Brook one that you walk in the winter then.
I'm saying because I think it had just snowed. It was probably about 3 feet of snow, and I was breaking trail. And so, yeah, it was very difficult.
Okay.
But
This time of year.
Yeah.
But in the good weather, when school is out, you can go up that There's a trail that goes in back of the football stadium field,
Behind the bleachers.
in back of the bleachers. You walk along the back of those fields all the way around. I think there's a couple baseball fields, and then you go down that trail over to Robinson, and there's 2 big fields that you can get a good walk around. And some, in the nice weather, we'll do that twice. It's flat. There's no potholes, I don't think, because they're maintained fields. But then I guess probably there might be a problem with all those people on the fields. That would probably be the problem.
On Saturday mornings.
Well, I would think those people would wear the fields down, and some of them are baseball fields, and aren't they particular about their baseball fields and the grass and everything? I don't know. Anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, I've walked that area, obviously but full of snow, so I don't know it well enough to have a look at it. It doesn't have the scenic element that Stony Brook has, and it doesn't have the width of path when you're talking about sharing a space. And then some of the bridges, when we're talking about accessibility, some of the bridges aren't accessible to everybody. There's one just with 2 tree trunk planks over a stream.
And on the trail along Stony Brook, the alternate trail coming back, that also, when I walked there, I got lost and I was walking, and yes, there's a bridge over
A small bridge,
a ravine. Yes, and it's 2 telephone
Bearing in
poles.
mind. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
I
it just,
saw that.
my thought was,
Accessible.
yeah, is,
One of the bridges leans, this is in the Westford
Yeah,
Trail,
okay.
one of the bridges
That's an Eagle
leans.
Scout project from 20 years ago, I think.
okay.
The Robinson Crystal Fuller one also has the areas that flood too.
Yeah.
and wet
Well,
spots.
it just, that walking across 2 telephone poles, especially, yeah. Well, it just, yes, it's not necessarily the most, not everybody's up to it.
But you could say that about, Margaret, you could say that about any path. The whole goal of parkrun is to have people challenge themselves and build up to it. I think that was one of the questions, what happens if somebody can't complete the whole route? Well, you've got the 2 back runners who would stop and pause with that individual. And if they felt they didn't want to continue, they could turn around and walk back and then come back the following week and try again. But the idea is that that being in this nature space, in this organised event, with people encouraging you, will encourage you to come back next week and try again. So I don't know, Matt, I don't know if we've reached what's the next? I didn't want to.
Oh, yeah, and, yeah, so if we're not doing it December through March, and the fact that there are no portable toilets during those months ceases to be a
Yeah.
concern.
Absolutely.
Because that was the other thought that I had, is somebody shows up to do the event, there's no place to go before, or they finish and they really would like to go, there's, nothing to go.
So if we did it in the fair weather, if you gave me 6 months and said, come and report your stats to us, the numbers, come and report the numbers to you, I would come back with data and we would do it in the fair months. Just outside of parkrun, I would help to volunteer to appropriately fill potholes where there was infrastructure, where there had been, infrastructure wear and tear, to also mitigate the risk to the runners in the cross-country club as well.
And it just, and, Ellen, I don't know if you would be on the same page with me, but I think the discussion about what to do with the potholes is it's a long conversation, and I think both of our organizations think about, how this should be done and stuff like that. That is not, this is speaking for me, that is something that I think we are not going to get resolved quickly. And I don't know if the land preservation feels differently about addressing the potholes that would need to be addressed for this event.
Well, I think I'm wearing two hats here. One is a member of the Conservation Trust and the other is a parliamentarian. I would suggest that the board should get a motion on the floor so that you know what it is that you are debating and what you will be voting on. And I would ask that that vote be contingent on the understanding that the endorsement of the Westford Land Preservation Foundation Board in favor of it is imperative. So it's a two-part thing, but I really do think we've heard a lot, and I do believe that you should put a motion before you. And when we have our discussion, Margaret, I promise that I will convey back to all the board members, all of the concerns here tonight. We will get together as soon as we possibly can. Our chair is back from vacation next week, and we would be able to get back to you if we did a special meeting.
And you can watch it on Westford Cable Access
That's
TV.
absolutely true. I will give all of them the opportunity to do
Jim?
that.
Didn't we already receive in writing from the Westford Land Preservation Foundation, not this whole thing with the filling in potholes or anything like that,
Yeah,
but just the idea of having a park run on
We
this
have not met as a
Saturday?
board, Jim. Our
Uh,
board of directors for the Westford Land Preservation. You've
Don't we have
spoken
that-
with Andrea Parrish?
Don't we have that in writing from Andrea already?
No, I don't believe so.
Pretty sure we did.
Well, with
No,
all due
I think
respect,
she had,
she didn't have.
It was in the same letter
I
that
think
said
was
no,
not
you
the
know,
intent, because we haven't met as a
Didn't really
board.
address the paving issue, but it did for park run.
I thought she had said that she liked the questions we were asking.
So,
Yeah, that
I mean,
that
that-
we had more
that's-
questions than they did, and that there was no concerns.
No concerns or no additional concerns?
The board has not met, Jim. I'm not sure what Andrea said to you, but I can tell you that we have not met as a board, and therefore we have
This seems
not,
to
we
be a
don't
little
have a
confusion
position
with
Okay.
on
Hey.
this as of this moment, and we
It's
must do that.
Is this it here?
Yeah.
Said we raised the issues, didn't talk about their concerns.
That they need to discuss it.
I reached out to our board and no one seems to have any comments or opposition.
Okay,
I don't know
Last
if that's,
paragraph, Jim, second to last sentence.
Right, that's the motor vehicle issue.
We still need to discuss this issue.
Right, no, the motor vehicle thing is still open, but the use of park run, I think, was up here.
I don't believe that was that the park run application, or was that the question, that was the question we raised last June
yeah.
about
But
the
it's-
potholes, the
this
access
is-
road.
She's covering multiple topics here.
Yeah.
So is the top,
Yeah,
is
see,
the
that's about the
first,
parents, that was the access road in issue
Yeah.
that we started discussions about last summer. So that was not relevant to Lydia and
Well, no,
Stefan's
because
request.
Let's say
the
park run is
access
the
road
subject.
is part of where the run would be occurring
I
on.
understand, but
So-
for
so
us,
yes.
they're two separate issues.
so is that the first paragraph that's relating to park run, just so that I understand?
right, so last Wednesday's conscom, so meeting, so if this was January 6th, the commission's last meeting would have been the second.
December.
Or the first, the
December.
only December.
Right,
December meeting, yeah.
So that would have been around the 12th?
Oh, no, sorry, that's my apologies. That was the commission's first January, that at Wednesday's Ellen would be attending, and then we table it. But I've reached out to our board, no one seems to have any comments or opposition, I reviewed the comments, watched the meeting. Has raised all appropriate issues from the board's perspective and the CR. So I think we're parsing too much into language with which, I mean, I think ultimately, I think if the commission ultimately is amenable to the request, a letter to the Westford Land Preservation Foundation would be appropriate, documenting why the proposal for park run is consistent with the CR and is consistent with the conservation values listed in it. That's my perspective as the administrator, kind of for the process. But again, the commission first needs to,
As Ellen said, make a motion.
Yeah, make a motion, kind of discuss said motion and go.
Emphasize what Matt was saying, that there's two paragraphs in the conservation restriction about giving notice about approaches. And we would have to describe what we want to do, when it would be done, when it would start, when it would finish. any restrictions, things like that, and then we would need to get a written response back.
Mhm.
So,
Okay,
and everybody's got, I think, 60 days to do each of those steps. You have to, at least 60 days in advance of the start of the project, you have to send the request, and they have 60 days to review it at most and to return it. It also says that neither side would, both sides would make efforts to accelerate the process, so not to take the full 60 days each, but that's what the allowance is in the CR.
okay. So I think, following the advice of our former town moderator, in terms of coming up with a motion, we've expressed caveats, there are different thoughts. Jim,
I could support Park Run in there on Saturday mornings for their hour and a half period of time during April, May, June, and July. But that's it. If it's in the wintertime, December, January, February, March, no way. And if it's overlapping with the cross-country team's training and practice, I wouldn't support that either. So I would support Park Run April, May, June, and July.
So-
That is a motion.
so,
Okay.
No, it's discussing.
I have no idea what anybody else is thinking.
we're pre-motioning.
You can't do that.
Okay, so can I,
We can't say anything except a motion, yes, we can.
Actually, there should be no discussion until there's a motion on the floor.
We're not-
We're discussing.
I wasn't discussing.
yes, and we did have a formal request, and that was the basis of the discussion, but as you say, is when it comes time to making decisions, we need a formal motion. So I guess, if I take the bits and pieces of what I've heard people say, is can I have a motion to propose an initial trial of Park Run for the months of April, May, June, and July? Almost like a proof of concept. And the intent of that is, how does it work every week? Is that a problem? What's the hands going up?
I wanna know why it was limited to 4, maybe not 5 months.
For 6 months.
6 months, 6
Right
months.
before the fall then.
Okay.
Because 6 months,
No, he's talking about cross-country, so.
Well, no, but the cross-country is during the week and this is,
During the week.
They're not on Saturday. interact.
so,
And also just to, as included in the proposal from, the work wouldn't be, the earliest it is anticipated to start is the end of May. So if,
because of the,
it will
the time frame, the back and forth, they were anticipating,
well,
I think
and
of
there's
May
the two things,
31st.
there's also,
weather,
yes.
think of weather when you make the
Well,
limitation.
that's already done, yeah.
No, it's not, because I think you have another month that you could put,
Or 2.
you had 4,
Two,
well, I
yeah,
thought
okay.
5, okay? You made it 4, and I stretched it to 5.
Okay. So, but it brings up a good point. This, in the first year, we have the engagement process that we need to do with the Westford Land Preservation Foundation. There's the Park Runs, process that they need to go through before the first event occurs. So in fact, it's unlikely that anything would actually happen until sometime in May. If we're using March and April.
End of May,
End of May,
realistically, end of May,
okay.
31st of May might be
Okay.
a realistic date.
Jim,
There's a number of things like you were starting to mention there that we need to do before this actually starts. April, May, June, July seems like the period that might make sense, but maybe not the first April, because I think we need to also get a written agreement that we have to draft. And the presentation materials that you sent this week indicated in there that from your end, it's just you're receiving the permission to use the property. But from our end, we would have to include any and all restrictions or limitations that might be applicable to the property in our letter to you. So I think there may be quite a few things that we might want to take advantage of that were offered in these presentation charts about things that could be checked, whether it was a limitation of 40 people or there's a number of things that could be tried. And I think we have to make sure every detail we need is in this written agreement. And then we probably need to get town council to look at it.
Okay, and there are the outstanding questions, is
The as-is issue,
the as-is,
Yep.
in terms of, do we try and address the potholes, or for this first period, we're doing it with, cones in the potholes? Yeah, so basically as is, Noel?
What months do we have?
Clarifying question,
Mhm.
the months. So September, October and November because of cross-country?
they're in there for practice during the week and competitions.
And
So
also their events are during the week, so they're not using it.
that's why I said during the week.
But you, so you're,
So we're on the weekend.
You're on
we're
Saturday. True.
And one
Right,
thing
so-
doesn't have to
so
do
that
with
wouldn't be
another.
it. So my personal concern with that is that it's 6 days of the week.
so you're talking about usage, you're talking about,
Park run's only one day a week, which is nice. The schools and the training, I know they don't always run in the trails. Sometimes they're out on the streets, sometimes they're out in subdivisions, whatever. But there's a possibility of a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday having some kind of a
so you're talking about,
walk, run,
But in
whatever.
October, the cross-country teams stop.
They finish up in November sometimes, as late as November.
depending on whether they're finals?
I don't know.
Okay, but anyway,
It drops down to one in October and November, all I'm
Probably.
suggesting is.
Marilyn?
Well, just that I don't
And
have
we
an
would
issue
probably stop in November.
with the usage piece, I'd like to see this happen, okay? But I'd like to see it happen carefully, I'd like to see it happen in a trials kind of box so that we watch out for all the things that we discussed here tonight. But I can see it for maybe a 5-month period. That's my suggestion, but I don't wanna then start saying, okay, now the schools have it, so we don't wanna do it the same time, so they get 3. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. I'm a taxpayer, I would maximize it.
so,
Make the motion then.
what,
Well, I really-
so some of this is, so if we're looking at not necessarily, is events will probably dictate that the first event cannot happen until the end of May. Is if we do, so do we wanna include May, just in case we can get a date in there? So
31st of May. would be the
May,
earliest.
June, July, throw in the month of August to give us also the chance to see if cross-country and park run, if that becomes, it gives us a chance to test out, does that usage actually, is that usage actually too intense for, it lets us have some data to make the decision that says park run and the cross-country happening in the same week is,
Right.
creates unintended consequences.
I agree 100% with what you're saying and like to get data soon that we can then evaluate for you to move on. I think you would want to try and optimize, because I've seen with these things too, where you have a little bit of a ramp up. And so I would suggest May through when cross-country stops as well. So you have that overlap with the whole cross-country in your first data set that you can see whether it works or doesn't. And so go May to like October, and then that's the first year.
Jim? June?
I haven't heard anybody mention this tonight, so I just want to throw this out. I think it's probably about the 3rd week in June, or when does school get out? It's when school gets out through about the 3rd week in August. There is camp up there, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. until 5, but there can be extended day camp from 8 until 6. And I know historically how things work up there in the summer, and there's so many people competing to use the property, and I'm a taxpayer too, and I want to be able to go up there and enjoy it. And then we have the other people that take the place over every weekend, but we won't talk about them tonight. But it just, in the nice whether the competing interests for the property, it just gets more complicated.
How many hours are we talking?
This is an hour and a half on Saturday morning.
Okay.
But
Which is also what you would want to evaluate, so you
It's
would want to see a
9
solid
to
season
10:30
to
is
see if it works or
prime.
doesn't work.
Well-
to me,
Does.
prime time.
so
I'm finding exclusive.
I
To see if it
things. I'm
conflicts
not
with her
finding
stuff,
Yeah,
but give us that one season to
Well-
evaluate everything from the May to the fall to see where the problems are. Like, we're not gonna use it in the winter, and you do that one like 6-month period, you see everything, you get a good data set, because there's nothing worse than doing an experiment where you only do like half of it, and then you have to project into like, what is it gonna be like with the summer camp? What is it gonna be like with after cross-country ends? That would be my suggestion as a scientist, but I think you guys should make a proposal.
what, and so you're a scientist and I was a programmer. One of my concerns with going concurrently with the cross-country competition season is if there are adverse impacts to the trail, I don't want to impact their ability to host meets. And that was why I was thinking, doing the month of August, that's when they're training, that's when they're gearing up, is an abundance of caution. I'm hesitant to go through their full season because we don't know what we're getting into. We have no experience with this whatsoever.
But if you don't evaluate it, you
Yeah, we
don't
will
know.
never
And
know.
what we
No,
could
no,
offer
but-
is if you feel like there's gonna be a conflict because they have something that's during our Saturday. I'm going a little bit out of my position, but I feel like we would say, if you feel like this weekend in October is gonna be problematic, then we cancel our event, but you don't get to collect that data for what you're concerned about. You're projecting from something.
That's the thing, and
Yeah.
it will take a bit to ramp up
I don't
as
think
well.
we have enough information right now to have a motion on to say yay or nay. I mean, I still have questions regarding the insurance. I mean, what happens, I wanna understand more about the insurance, more about the wear and tear and how that affects the insurance and our liability. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't have that information, so right now I'm saying no.
Okay, so what we've done here is we've gotten through a lot of the heavy discussion. And so can you send Matt, articulate your specific questions to Matt so that he can get,
I thought I already articulated it very well in the
Okay.
discussion tonight, what my concern was, so I don't know if I need to re-articulate that. But I think I need my
Okay.
questions answered before I continue and make a decision whether
before
or
you,
not.
before you'd feel
And-
comfortable
yeah.
voting on a
I
motion?
mean, I hear what Jim's saying about limiting the time to maybe 4 months to start, and I'm good with that. But I'm not even good with every weekend. I mean, I would say maybe, once a month to start. I don't see, and I'm a scientist too. So I think we can gather enough data to do what we need to do. But I don't have enough information to say yay or nay. And I do think the usage would be too intense for what's being proposed. So in any motion, I'm looking at a much less intensive use than what's being proposed. And listening to the discussion tonight, I think there are probably more suitable places in town than this location to have parkrun.
So the only way we can provide you data is to actually do it. We can all talk about
Not at
it, I
all.
think it's
You don't
there,
have to,
think
I
it's
wanna
not.
know about how your
I can only
folks do a
provide
risk
you numbers.
assessment. Your folks are gonna spend 8 to 10 weeks and do a risk assessment, and they're gonna tell me, and they're gonna go over that entire trail, and they're gonna tell me what condition everything is and how it needs to be maintained. But you're not telling me, once they do that, how we're gonna maintain it such that it's maintained at that level, because I'm sure it's gonna degrade. Who's responsible? There's other questions that need to be answered here.
So maybe a more detailed response from Park Run that says, what are the nitty gritty about how the assessment is done? What are the criteria? What is the evaluation? What is the expectation for, you know, is Wood Park Run
Okay, there's that.
Yeah, so
And
what,
alternatives analysis. You know, we'd ask somebody to say, okay, they want to do X. And sometimes we'll say, well, you know, show me show me why it can't work here. Show me why this has to be here. But I'm thinking there are probably other places in town that are better suited. And right now, this is the only site that's being proposed, but no other site has been proposed in town for Park Run. Some have been discussed tonight, but, you know, I just think that, you know, why only this site and why not others? I know that Nancy had brought up the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail as a better place. It may be more suited. You know, maybe Grassy Pond is, I don't know. We have a lot of trails in town. I just think some may be more suited to this, even though the trail manual, whatever, says this is an easy trail. I think from what I'm hearing tonight, it's certainly not easy by any means, and probably very, very challenging during a good portion of the year.
Okay, so,
is there another question?
sure.
Go ahead, Nancy, sorry.
So I just want to, when Eric brought up the thing earlier about, you know, let's get a baseline and then is there liability to the town? And I know you're going to get more information on the risk assessment from insurance, et cetera, that's great. But if it were me, I really think you also need to go to the Westford's town council and find out, to his point, if that baseline deteriorates and someone gets hurt, is the town liable? And, you know, it's not a real safe trail. I run there all the time, as I said. There's lots of things you can trip over. That's the nature of the woods. And are you setting yourselves up by a sponsored event like this as a liability town? I don't know the answer to that, but for me, I think those are good
That's a
questions to
question I
ask your
have,
town
yeah.
council.
Okay,
And so get it from town council and their insurance.
Okay, so,
I agree with that.
yeah, in terms of getting input from town council, how detailed and how specific does our question need to be before town council says I need more information?
If we ask a vague question, we'll probably get a vague answer.
Right, I mean, so I think in terms of, I think there's enough specificity kind of for the second with respect to liability of changes over time. Again, I only pretend to be an attorney, you know, twice a month, you know, this month for 3. There is a Mass General law that does protect property owners, homeowners you know, recreational trails, things like that. If, you know, somebody slips and falls, unfortunately breaks an ankle, you know, there is a Mass General law. I'd have to look it up.
So let town council do that.
Right.
Don't expound upon it and tell us what you think. Let town council tell us what they think.
So, you know, I can ask the questions as you've raised tonight, and if we need more information, and if I need more information from you as to kind of direct the inquiry,
Reach
or
out.
if we need answers from, you know, from Park Run, we can certainly do that as well.
Marilyn?
I also think you need to know who the insurance is, what they cover, whether town council thinks that covers us. That's the way I'd wanna go. He says, oh,
You
sure.
know, are they, you know,
No, is it
is
safe
the
enough?
jurisdiction of the.
Is it safe enough?
It's not even it's not even safe enough. Is
Safe
the rule,
financially as well.
are they bound by the rules of Massachusetts? Is it,
that's what-
you know, is it another state?
So we may be asking
another
questions that
country?
Cutler
Yeah,
Park
all
didn't
that
think to
stuff.
ask.
He would know what to look at. He needs to look at that insurance
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay,
I mean, that's something that I can get copies of to provide.
But I think the lawyer talks to the lawyer.
Exactly, I'm just gonna get a
Opposed
copy
to
of
talking
Yeah.
through you.
Totally
If I
agree.
were doing something, I'd want him to,
Totally
I'd
agree.
pay him to do that, not to
Okay.
talk to a third party.
May I?
June?
That's not, I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No, no, that's fine, no, I would get a copy.
May I ask Lydia a question? So I believe you alluded to the fact that the insurance coverage was, I think you said it was 12 million pounds, but I don't really know what that means.
So I pulled up Cutler Park's certificate of insurance liability because that makes a little bit more sense to me. So this, and again, this is just what I found. I don't know.
Is that Lydia's insurance holder?
No,
This
that's
is the
not
one
me.
for the
This
other
is the one
Park
for
Run,
Cutler
that Cutler
Park, so it's
Run.
Park
So this
Run's
is
To the
insurance certificate.
So it's got the place in
to
Needham.
DCR. Yeah, the landowner name. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Event name, Cutler Park, Park Run, landowner name, Department of Conservation and Recreation.
It's Boston then, so
If
it
you go up
is.
to the top where the insurers are, it's the only insurer listed as State National Insurance Company, Inc. They're the insurer affording coverage. Marsh is the producer. The insured is Park Run, and it tells you the various liabilities. So State National Insurance Company, Inc. is providing insurance under A, commercial and general liability. There's the policy, there's the policy number. You want to, and those are the limits of coverage per occurrence.
Right. And so again, this is with the state. This is with DCR.
So is that US dollars, Matt?
Yeah.
Or is it pounds?
No, it's
those are
US dollars.
Yeah. Again, this is in the U.S. You know.
So each occurrence is $1 million. Yeah, do you understand?
Coverage.
Each occurrence, $1 million.
It
may not be enough.
Aggregate, so you got
Yeah.
$1 million per occurrence, 2 million annual aggregate. Where it says general aggregate, that's annual aggregate.
All right, I don't know a lot about insurance. I had malpractice insurance for years, and I think I had higher coverage than that.
I see these every
Malpractice
day,
right now isn't even that.
these certificates.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it probably is enough either, not in.
That's why they.
Again,
But again,
and-
but,
but town council could say what the
Not in
again, you know, for
Massachusetts.
Yeah, but this
So
is,
you know what I can do is provide this to you to provide
Yeah,
to the
and it's-
relevant
Yeah.
individual.
It's not a
that's
statement about
qualified
you.
To determine whether that's appropriate or not.
again, you know,
But it's further
it-
discussion needs to happen, we'll get, we'll make a request to town council to render opinion. We'll get that back, we'll continue.
well, but the challenge is that Lydia teaches, and so,
So I teach it until the 19th of April. After the 19th of April is the next time. How much time do you need to be able to?
Let's do another meeting like this and we'll just continue it. I don't wanna put a time limitation on it. I don't know what kind of information I'm gonna get back, I don't know where this discussion's gonna
we
lead.
still have to have the discussions about, yeah, what the
So,
months
I see
are,
another discussion
how
just
we
like this one.
interact with, how much we participate, how much we use the same months that the cross-country team is, there's,
But you need the attorney's
yes.
opinion.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
That could stop
full,
you in your tracks
meeting
or let
like
you
that.
go.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the feedback from town council is the first piece that says,
That's paramount.
that's the first, don't like the word hurdle, but that's the first milestone that we have to achieve, that we can get to something where everybody's comfortable with what town council says. And then it's it's then moving on to the next tiers of issues and questions.
usage.
Usage,
Yeah.
frequency of usage.
Yeah.
I think we would, Eric, I agree and hear what you say, and again, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but I think breadth would be valuable, but like if we reduced it from every Saturday to like 1 or 2 a week, but if we tried to shoot to see that overlap into the fall where we would normally.
And we can have that further
at, like,
discussion,
October,
yeah.
I'm just trying to plant the
Yeah,
seeds
yeah.
for you kind of thing,
Yeah.
that we're also looking to hear you and understand that like, hey, maybe right out of the gate, every Saturday is too much to collect that first data set, but.
So let's find a date that works for Lydia. And another first Wednesday of the month, we can do that again. And once we get, you know.
It's it may be another night. I know because you're currently spring breaking, so that's why. So it may be another.
If you have, we can
So when,
make ourselves available
so
other
can I
nights.
ask you, when is town council, do you have a specific, similarly, do you have a specific fixed date for the next town council meeting that you'd?
No, so
That's our lawyer.
council meeting attorney.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right. Oh, council.
Council, not council.
And they're usually pretty good about a week, if just in terms of getting the request to them. A week.
Okay, so if I could get you more detail on the insurance policy,
Similar to
For
like
your
that one you
town
pulled up.
council.
Right. Yeah, and I pulled up the Jamaica Pond one with Boston Parks and Rec.
because you'll only get a certificate once we've reviewed, once, we've got permission from the landowner, we've done a video,
they review the risk assessment. So I don't know if there's more detail I can give you for this. Is it
Do you feel like
policy
you could
or-
utilize those two as
Could you-
examples?
I was gonna provide those two as an
Okay.
example.
And can we go with that for
Could we
town
go with
council as
that?
a first look at?
I think so.
Okay.
That was my intent, because
This answers some of the question, but it doesn't answer the question about, do we expose ourselves
oh,
to
100%,
undue
right,
liability?
yeah, right,
if we don't
but in
maintain
terms
it?
of,
But yeah,
getting something
as far
about
as
insurance
per
coverage.
occurrence and annual aggregate of the policy, and is it sufficient? Yeah, that's one that they could address straight up.
Especially just as an example of, hey, here's what other ones in
Per
Massachusetts.
occurrence, 2 million annual aggregate, I'll tell you, to me is low. But, I'm.
Well, Eric, we can play attorney,
Yeah,
but let's go.
This is my side of the
Were
street.
both of those similar? Like
I
the
think
two
it
we
was
pulled out?
Oh, no, this
the
one's
same
cheaper.
kind of thing?
Actually, no,
They're the same.
that one changed. Sorry, let me just.
I think while he's pulling that up,
You should
Margaret, you
look
had
at
something you were
actually,
gonna
just
say?
to see if there's.
I was just gonna
I
say,
didn't say anything, is that?
so, oh no, because the
Anything about
fourth,
providing coverage on the town, on the city of Boston, or just Park Run USA?
I saw the
think if we
15.
got one, it would end up being the same kind of
Same,
thing.
yeah.
That's the park run policy kind of thing. That's what ours would look like then.
But I can certainly use this as an example to provide.
does
to-
April, how many Wednesdays does April have?
I thought maybe March 19th, if you can get him to do it pretty.
No, she's,
Oh, I'm sorry.
she's
Yeah.
teaching.
Say again?
I can't do.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you
Good
say
for
that.
Wednesdays.
Somebody, what has April?
What
I
works
was
for you?
so you're done April 19th.
I'm done April 19th.
I mean, if you can do it on your own, we're in Italy,
26th.
like over the April, the.
So, yeah, but the fourth,
Some other night?
What about the first week in May?
first Wednesday in May?
There-
Some other night,
there-
every night?
I could do any other night other than so after the 26th,
Yeah,
let's
but-
say, I could do.
But
another
other
night.
nights, we start having conflicts with this with this room.
Right.
But yes, the first Monday in May.
First Monday
I mean,
in
the
May?
first Wednesday in May.
So let me just quickly
It's 2
pull
months
up
from
a
now.
calendar.
Works for me.
There, come on, just Google, really?
Or May 14th.
Why is this so difficult?
What did you pick?
I'm trying to pull up a calendar for, yeah, I know, but for people,
Bottom right.
so there is April 30th, there's a fifth Wednesday in April, the 30th.
Ah,
Yeah, we could do it.
yeah, so
Oh, there are 5,
Lydia.
you're right.
Yes, there are.
April 30th is also Wednesday.
April
Which
30th
is-
is Wednesday.
It's after you're done, it's,
Okay,
It's not one of our meeting nights.
So we could do
it's a
that.
fifth, so I don't have to fight with,
April 30th.
I don't have to ask the I don't have to ask the Commission on Disability to let us in again. But we could, that could be,
April 30th I can do.
Okay,
Let's do it.
yeah, those sneaky 5 Wednesday months,
Yeah.
At 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
Okay.
Here.
What do I need to get for everybody, just to confirm more detail on the statement from Park Run as is, insurance
Well, I
as
think,
is
I think
relative?
we're looking for more detail about their assessment process,
And what they expect
Maintenance.
of how, what, do they expect it to be maintained once they render a determination, on the condition
well, and
of the
actually,
trail?
expected maintenance period, because that gets into the clearing of down trees and stuff like that. Is what is the expected maintenance, and that covers everything from trail condition to acts of nature.
And we should try to figure out if that conflicts with the CR.
Yeah. You mean the maintenance of the trail?
Yeah.
And I guess, do we also need to segregate out maintenance of the trail when it's something like a man-made surface, be it star pack, impervious, whatever, versus a totally natural where you've got tree roots growing through dirt? Do we need to, is there a distinction made with the type of trail surface we're dealing with? Man-made versus natural?
God, I'm gonna have a better idea once I understand how they do the risk assessment and process
But-
and what they expect from us after the fact.
Right, but those those are two aspects that are relevant for this trail that we would, is, because the answer could be different. If it's a natural trail versus a man-made surface. And then, so and then at the next meeting, we can also, assuming we get that far in the conversation, we talk about which months, we talk about frequency during the month, all of those parameters need to be discussed.
First you have to find out.
The number of runners or the number of participants.
Right.
That's enough.
Alternate sites too, do you want that?
Yeah, we did talk about the alternatives analysis on where else this could be done.
Okay, that
Because usually, we would want to know that. Because, there just could be better places.
well, but that also brings up one of the things, and I don't remember whether it came up in the discussion, but that, for example, if we get subsequent other groups wanting to come in and do the same thing, does an alternatives analysis give us the way that says, okay, yes, yours is a very worthwhile event. We've got one here. The alternatives analysis says, is there someplace else that you can do your event so that we're not getting everybody going after a single location?
So can I ask, how many alternative requests like this have you had in the last 2 years, 3 years?
I'm sorry.
I think the
How
alternative.
many alternative requests like
is
this have you had?
I think it's more in terms of when somebody's developing their property and they want to do it this way. They want to have everything laid out this way, and there's potentially adverse consequences to resource areas, and we basically, and it, like with the riverfront, is
Show us why there couldn't be an alternative that would be less impactful. Why, so we always say, okay, so you do an alternatives analysis, we're looking for something to be least impactful and have the least amount of adverse impact to the resource area. So, in this case, it's more like, okay, we're looking at potential impacts and issues, and with this particular site that's chosen or, being considered, and maybe in this process, we should be considering other areas where park run could, have its run that may be, less problematic.
Jim?
Can I ask, how would
Lydia,
I do
the answer to the question is not.
How would I do it?
We've had no requests
Alright.
to use the property in this manner. The ones we have been on a much shorter term basis, like somebody wants to go in there and do a student movie filming or something.
So one-off.
Those kind of, yes.
Or even the fun run that was 6-7 years ago was probably the last.
Fun run, Department of Health fun run.
Anyway,
No, I mean, I don't, it was
very, very few.
I don't remember if it was a charity or something like that, but
Right.
it was a one-time, we're coming in one day, we're hoping to, we're gonna go through, we'll be done, and.
But just coming back to this alternative
Yeah,
assessment.
so
I
like
don't
that, we
understand
have
what-
our various trail book for the various trails. Are there trails that are better suited to do the park run than here at East Boston?
Well, and
So what criteria would you
Would-
use to make that assessment relative to this? What would the criteria be? I'm trying to
Like
think
what
of
we've
the
seen
numbers.
where it's more grassed, more open,
So-
more a manicured surface.
More predictable.
width of trail, so things like you have said, is width of trail, does manicured surface make it better or worse? But it just, what are the features, and looking at them that says, and this is just me thinking, is you look at a trail and you say, yes, this location is better than the Stony Brook Trail because of X, Y, and Z, but it's not as good for these other reasons. And so there's a quantitative look at it that says, and I guess some of it becomes, how do you assign values to those criteria where you say Stony Brook is better for this reason, this other trail is better for this different reason, is how it's,
thing, that's what I'm struggling with.
is how do you evaluate
I need
the
to know
pros
what
and
the
cons?
criteria
There
are,
might be
and I
less
need to be able
problems
to have
with
some measure. Some
less problems with one than another. We've named so many problems, you know.
We haven't named the
You know, like I'm
criteria
just, you know,
to do
one
an
comes to mind, you
alternative.
know, grassy pond, you know, level, flat, wide, you know, accessibility, not saying, I'm just saying, you know, one could say, okay, this could be good for this reason, and this reason, but
It
maybe
doesn't
it's
have
not
the
long enough,
parking.
or it's- yeah, or it's this.
There's no
yeah,
bathrooms.
Exactly, so, you know,
Yeah.
that scratches, you know, so,
So how many would you need though? I mean, like, cause I feel like if we come with
Well,
like 3, like Bruce Freeman Trail doesn't
I'm
work,
looking for, you know,
Bravo Food doesn't
something that's,
work, and then
something
you're
that's
like-
similar in scope, you know, a trail that's, I guess, similar in length to what's being proposed here.
Well, so it's length of trail, it's adequate parking. Does restroom facilities, would that be considered, would that be a criteria that would weigh in terms of there's no restrooms, there's no public restrooms available, does that automatically disqualify a trail from use?
No, because there aren't any right now.
What do you mean?
At the Stony Brook Middle School, during certain months, the rec department has porta potties available for the activities going on up there.
Okay, great.
One other kind of criteria, alternatives analysis, parameter, crossing of traffic, again, we discussed the
Well, we
Bruce
raised
Freeman.
the issue earlier about, they were talking about coming into the parking area down near, where Depot
But that's
was,
not-
and
but that's not
there was
crossing-
that,
Acton Road.
intersection of cars and parking and runners and that was probably, so,
But I guess what we're thinking is we come back with 3 that like are comparable distances, but we say they're not as good as Stony Brook.
Yeah.
Like then you guys just say, well, you only looked at 3 and those weren't as good.
Yeah.
Go find, like, it's like
How
you're
many is
looking
enough?
for like.
no, I hear,
How many
I get
is
what you're
enough?
saying.
Like that, so that's what we're trying to.
I just don't know how many how many trails are similar to this trail in town that might be.
Well, that would, and I think one of the key things will be how many have adequate parking.
Because I feel like what you want is us to come back and say, here's the better one that we're gonna go to instead of using Stony Brook. As opposed to we come back with,
But if we
here's
don't-
4 we looked at that aren't as good as Stony Brook. We'd still like to trial Stony Brook
Yep,
for
okay.
those like 6 months kind of thing.
And if we don't
That's
know what
my
the
concern
criteria
is.
are,
I-
how do we make that assessment?
Yeah, if you don't understand the metrics, I get it.
Even if we understand the metrics, like that we bring you 3
Yeah, I
examples
get you.
that fail, like.
And I would throw it back, I mean, you've all lived in Westford a lot longer than me. Can you think of a comparable? Could you think of a shortlist that we could even look at, even one? I mean, we had a look at the one that you mentioned near the schools. Is there any place
Not
in
year round,
Groton?
but the Freeman
Is there any
Rail
place in-
Trail is the one that comes to my mind.
And
It's-
that-
We started at the Bruce Freeman, but
That's closest to the
But-
pictures
A
that
lot of
are,
traffic.
the pictures
Yeah.
in your presentation
Yeah.
always show 8-foot wide paved walkways or 100-foot wide grassy fields.
But that's where I would say that the Stony Brook one is better than Bruce Freeman Rail Trail that I use actually for the walk with the dock. And so that's what I'd say. I mean, we could come back to you with, like, we compared it to the Rabafui one, we've compared it to Bruce Freeman, and I still personally think between those 3, and I know the Robinson Crisafulli one very well. That's my personal, I live on that one, that's where I do my trail runs. I do the walk with the dock on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and for what we're looking for here, like, and what she came with, and doing that comparative analysis, I still would put this one up above those ones kind of thing. And that's what I just worry though, is I give you these 2 that like, we don't feel like they did, and it's, there's always like, well, did you look at something else or find something else? So how do we rein that one in? I see this insurance one that we've locked it down, like that one is perfect. General counsel has to look at the numbers, does it cover it? I hear yours too, I'm glad I'm not a lawyer and let them do that to be like, is this gonna change? But this other one is so much more ethereal and pulls us off from moving forward with this, even just on a temporary basis, that we say, okay, like we assess it against a couple, like nothing's perfect, let's
Oh, I
try
hear your
this one.
point. I hear your
Right.
point.
So can we set some hard and fast criteria that says adequate parking for 30 cars, publicly available restrooms? That, are there things that an alternative trail would need, an alternative location would need to be able to provide to make them a starter in the first place?
Can I ask a question about the porta potties?
Yeah,
So the porta potties are gonna be at where?
they're already at
It's right there. They're
Stony Brook Middle School, because that's where Park Run will come in. They will not be using, they will not come in Depot. Park Run will not have people coming in Depot Street to park. They're going up to the middle school.
And so the porta potties, I mean, I don't ever go over to Stony Brook School, hardly, so I don't really know what goes on over there. So the porta potties are not there now, but are there seasonally? How does that work over there? Does anybody go over there?
They come back when it's warmer, so they come back between March and I think they go around November, December time.
I would think like afternoon sports like tennis or whatever they do after school, sports-wise. Couldn't the kids go into the school?
No, they.
Do they lock the school up at 2:30 or something?
Yeah,
School's locked up. School's locked up at all times.
Okay, so school gets out and then they go out in the fields and they do, like, I know there's a couple big fields up there. There's a track up there too. I think there's a tennis.
Track, tennis, softball.
So the school gets locked up and then the porta potties come when the outdoor sports start.
no, I think Lydia, it's the recreation department that provides.
Parks and Recs that provide the bathrooms.
So they put those there so that the community coming to use the fields, et cetera, has a place to go.
Oh, okay. All right.
Nobody to police the school.
It's open to the public.
You couldn't
Tennis
just
and
have
all
the
that.
public.
Yeah. But I'm just,
There'd be nobody to police the school,
So that's what they lock the school up when school gets out, yeah, okay, yeah.
What was the concern? Was there a concern with the bathrooms?
Oh, I'm just wondering, I heard talk about a porta potty and
She wanted
new
to win.
information.
I don't go over there and I just was wondering about it.
So Margaret, back to your criteria. Bathrooms?
Bathrooms, adequate parking,
And now-
length of trail.
But this is what sort of has steered us to that. So if you're now saying that we have to find something that
Well,
has all of this criteria.
No, we're just saying, have other sites that meet the minimum criteria been looked at? And it's just
So we've looked at the Bruce Freeman. I've actually looked at Grassy Pond. I've run that one. The parking is the issue. We
okay,
looked at the Bruce Freeman. As soon as you go across roads, that's an additional risk. You need a police.
because of the crossings of the
Yeah.
Because of the road crossings, I was trying to find a 3-mile contingent area that also was covering part of Westford. But so as soon as you go over roads, that's an issue. And then you also have two-way traffic there and bicycles and the public. So as opposed to Stony Brook, which is wider walkways.
So what might be helpful for us is if you write up a report of all the trails you've already looked at and why they were considered in, what criteria they did not meet in order to be suitable for Park Run, because I think that's an important piece of information for us to have.
Yeah, but can I ask you, with your local knowledge, is there a place that compares to Stony Brook?
Have you looked at
I've maybe not.
She mentioned Groton. Have you looked at Groton? There's a great trail that runs all the way to Ayr.
Yeah,
It's
so
a bike
that's like a
trail.
bike path, isn't it?
Yep.
It's like
Yeah.
a bike path, so it's the
Which
same
also
thing.
crosses over
Which
roads
crosses
then is the
over
There are
problem.
sections if you're trying to get free.
Is there
If you're doing 11 miles, yes.
Is there something in Groton that goes along the Nashua River?
That's what we're talking about,
Natural
yeah.
River Rail Trail.
And I know, I think people can rent kayaks and
Yep.
canoes and stuff like that there.
There are sections that are more than 2 miles where there's no crossing, I think.
But then you've got people starting at they'd have to go down and then come back, and then you've got, and your concern is
My concern is cross-through
spreading-
traffic in the same way with the Bruce Freeman. So you'll have people going that way, but you also have regulars and bikers going that way and then have to turn around and come back. So you've got that whole
you've got two-way traffic.
two-way traffic, that's what I'm trying to say, two-way
There's
traffic.
the Stone Arch Bridge, but that's too small.
Yeah.
Stone Arch, yeah, I saw that, it's too small, you'd have to keep going and there's no parking.
Because parking would be, you could park at the church, but then you have to cross the rail lines.
Yeah, but
Might
talk
know
about
that
liability.
If we thought 27 was bad, that's
manages the trails, like Bill Harmon knows more about the trails than just about anybody.
Well, and that, well, you've been in contact with Rich Straza, the head of the Westford the president.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he might be a good person to reach out with the question, are there any other trails we haven't considered? Because I don't go anywhere I can't walk
They
to.
manage them.
Yeah, but it just,
Yeah, so I mean, if they're gonna know, I mean, that'd be a resource that I'd be talking to.
Yeah, but some of it also is, I think, I was just gonna say that the trail loops at Lakeside Meadows, but that's the other thing, is it probably should be on public land as opposed to a trail easement on private land.
Yep.
But yeah, Rich, is with the report, what you've already looked at and their criteria that says this is not suitable for the event, and then reach out to Rich Straza and say, are there any other trails in town that we should consider?
For goodwill, like if we do this, like do you feel like we have then done some
Yeah, I'm thinking
evaluation?
you take
and
your
stuff?
due diligence,
I mean,
you know, yeah.
I mean, because
Yeah,
I think she
but I
has, and I mean, we haven't
If he comes up with
mentioned them all
something
here, but, like,
amazing, if he
this
comes up with something really
has met
suitable and
all the
amazing,
criteria.
but otherwise, we're always, my fear is we're always gonna be looking for, in an open-ended request like that for alternatives, I could be looking for,
I don't know, we only have so many
No.
trails, and I think that,
But
the
also,
stewards,
there's new information, is we didn't know, all the trails that you've looked at and said, I can't use this one because of X. That was, we just hadn't heard
that
that you.
hasn't been part of our
Yeah,
discussion.
that you have all the places you've already looked and, and what your conclusion were. We were just thinking that somebody saw this and said, oh, this is beautiful,
This is
why
it,
look anywhere
yeah.
else? So the rest of your thought process, the rest of your investigation, some helpful information for us to have.
I have a suggestion on.
It's okay.
Okay, Noel,
Noel?
can you, a little louder, please?
Yeah, I have a suggestion on a location that could potentially work is the Greystone Pond Loop, the Fletcher's Pond over off of Russell's Way. There's a parking lot there. There is pickleball that happens. I'm not sure if that happens on a Saturday morning,
It
but
does.
there's
Greystone, Russell's Way and Forest Road, is
so
that
is it the
one?
Greystone Pond, but there are some big boulders, aren't there? I have looked at that one now as well, I've run it. Oh, there's some big, is there a quarry on the right-hand side? And then there
There
are some
It's-
large
the loop
boulders.
itself, I walk that loop most days and it
Yeah.
takes me about a half an hour to do the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
But that's a pretty flat, wide trail, and
Yeah.
it's not, it's never busy. There's not a lot of people that use that.
the only
There's a
challenge.
And there's a porta potty there.
Okay, let me go again, because if I think it's the one I'm thinking of, as you park, there is parking, and I think there is some sort of tennis or pickleball place.
Yeah.
But then as you set out on the trail, there are some large boulders, aren't they, like quarry rocks? If I remember rightly, there is some.
That's to prevent people from driving onto that.
Yes,
part of the
blocking
trail.
that trail, yeah, so you kind of have to get around that.
So.
I wouldn't see that
So
being-
Noel, are you saying across the dam itself or going up north alongside the pond?
Well, it's a loop. It's a loop trail.
Right, so the part of, not to do their assessment for them, but the dam is privately owned.
Looking for an owner.
Yeah.
They are.
So,
You'll take it for, give it to you for nothing.
so that would be my one,
They will, the
again,
owner.
But
you know,
That's right, but the problem is you have to maintain that.
What do you mean? They want to get rid of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
They've been trying to get rid of it for years.
Oh, he wants you to buy it though.
No,
No.
free.
No, he'll give it to
Free.
you.
They'll give it to you because they don't want the
It's like the
liability.
€1 houses in Italy.
Why doesn't he just like deed it to the town and the town can?
Town doesn't want
Said
it.
no.
You don't want it.
Town doesn't want the dam.
Damn, we don't want the liability.
Oh,
So-
so that's a dam?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And there's work,
There's what?
there's work to do.
Oh, yes.
And Lydia,
Not in great condition, the
if you
dam.
see something,
All that took place.
when you're viewing a place, if you see something that you consider to be
A barrier.
a barrier, pictures are
I'm
great.
gonna take a video, so having taken this
No.
Pictures,
Stills.
because easier for me to present and include in a meeting package.
Yeah, because.
We're not that technologically
pictures.
advanced.
Yeah.
Because
Just
we
our-
wanna look
Makes it
at,
like it.
we wanna look at the highlights or the lowlights.
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
Agree. All right.
Thank you.
So let's continue this.
Okay,
thank you, thank
we
you,
will
everybody.
discuss this again on Wednesday, April 30th, 2025 at 7 PM.
Last call, it's last call.
There you go.
Oh, no, because we've still got the Westford Cable Access.
I'm just kidding, but
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Wait, don't you need to go
Oh,
on
yeah,
that? Yes,
that's right.
yes, yes.
Okay, so all those in favor, Eric,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Ann, and Margaret, yes, we are now adjourned.
Right.